Hello, Mrs. Hickman's class in Fortune, Newfoundland. I am delighted that you've been sharing my adventure across Canada with me. I'm going to share some stories with you while these picture slides play and hope that it doesn't bore the heck out of you. On May 29th, 2018, I left Coquitlam, BC to head out on a grand adventure across Canada with my motorcycle. Her name is Night Fury, but I call her Fury for short. She is named for the dragon in the How to Train Your Dragon movie. The goal was to travel through every province and territory and learn something about their history, industry, tourism, and people. The only one that would be missed was Nunavut because I couldn't get in by road. You can only fly into Nunavut. When I first began planning the trip, it was to be a grand adventure and a personal goal. Then I lost my sister, my only sibling, in a car accident on Valentine's Day this year. We had spent many hours talking and planning and getting excited about the trip. After losing her, the trip became more than just an adventure. It became something I needed to do, to journey the entire country in her memory and to earn her pride in my courage and ability to accomplish my goal. And so Nunavut was back on the map, even if I had to fly in to see it. Fury had to stay behind when I traveled to Nunavut. It was too expensive to fly a motorcycle in. I set out to discover our vast country with camping gear, a spare set of riding gear, a set of tools for basic bike repairs such as flat tires and chain maintenance, and a small waterproof case for my clothing. I also had a spare fuel pack so I could carry extra gas if I needed it. A bike doesn't go nearly as far as a car on a tank of gas. Protein bars, nut mix, and water provided emergency food in case I got stuck somewhere. By the time I reached the Yukon, which was about 10 days after I left home, I was already removing items I didn't need and sending them back home. I thought I would do a lot more camping, but found that I didn't sleep well, and you have to be well rested when you're riding a motorcycle. It's really important to be alert. I also found that it just took too much time to pack up camp, so to do it every day didn't make sense. So along the way on my journey, I often stayed with people I knew or met, and otherwise I stayed in the cheapest hotels I could find. When I left home, the temperature was 9 degrees. When you're trying to decide what to wear when you're riding a motorcycle, the general idea is to pretend the temperature is actually 10 degrees colder than what it is, because you're exposed to nature on a bike. There's no cage around you to protect you from the wind and the rain and the cold. So 9 degrees is like -1, and you need to dress pretty warmly. Sometimes I felt a bit like a snowman on a motorcycle. When I got to the Yukon, it was even colder. It'd be 3 degrees in the morning when I woke up. However, in the Yukon in June, there are between 20 and 22 hours of daylight, depending on how far north you are. So I would wait to leave on my explorations until about 11 o'clock in the morning when the temperatures had warmed up to 8 or 9 degrees. As I traveled across the prairies and into Ontario, it got hot. The temperatures rose to 30, 34, 36. So I changed to my spare set of mesh riding gear that would let the wind through and still protect me. I never ride without my gear. An accident, even at a low speed of 50 kilometers per hour, will tear through jeans and your skin. So I always wear a proper riding jacket, proper riding pants, boots that protect my ankles, gloves with knuckle guards, and a safety-approved helmet. Not only for myself, but for my family. I believe it's only respectful to them to do everything I can to protect myself from injury. During my ride, I had some pretty exciting days where I got caught in thunderstorms and really high winds where I would have to work hard to keep the bike upright and going straight. One time in Alberta, I had to ride through sheets of rain because there were no towns to stop at. I couldn't pull onto the shoulder because there wasn't any shoulder, and there were big logging trucks on the road with me who wouldn't have been able to see me on the side. So I had to just turn my hazard lights on and ride it out until I got to the nearest town. As it happened, that same day, I just about ran out of gas. When I finally made it to the gas station, I could see the parking lot was an absolute mud bowl. The mud and water were so deep I wasn't sure I could get through it, but I couldn't go any further without getting gas. So I picked what looked like the firmest ground and hoped I would get through it. Halfway in, the mud dissolved under Fury's tires, and I was sure we were going to go down and get a mud bath. We slid low to the right and low to the left, and I just kept saying, "No, no, no, Fury, we are not going down in that." At the last minute, we pulled out of it and onto the cement pad by the fuel pumps. Fury's tires were caked in mud. I found a better way out of the gas station when we left and had to ride slowly for a while to let the mud fling off the tires. Fury got a much-needed bath the next day, I can tell you. The only experience I had was worse than that is one you already know about, when I picked up the tar and gravel on the tires in Newfoundland. A construction crew had laid fresh, soupy tar on both sides of the roads, so traffic had to go through it. Then at the other side, they'd torn up chunks of pavement across the whole width of the road and laid fresh gravel over it. So my sticky tar tires picked up the gravel like dipping an ice cream cone in sprinkles. Riding the rest of the way to Grand Bank that evening was like riding on marbles, and I can assure you that this is no fun on two wheels. I wondered if my tires were ruined and how I might deal with getting them replaced. But fortunately for me, Corner Auto Body was open early the next morning. Mike took one look at my tires and said, "Nope, you should not be riding like that." So Mike and Sim and Morgan were my heroes that day for helping me get Fury's tires cleaned up as good as new, and I was back on the road before noon. More evidence that the world is full of marvelous people. During my travels, I saw lots of wildlife, but was lucky that it was rarely on the road in front of me. I saw black bears, brown bears, even a grizzly bear. There were rabbits, foxes, caribou, mountain sheep, bison, moose, and lots of squirrels and suicidal chipmunks who couldn't decide which way they should run when they were on the road. I saw all kinds of birds, ducks, geese, swans, bald eagles, sandhill cranes, herons, blue jays, killdeer. I even saw a golden eagle in the Yukon that was just spectacular. I had to visit a zoo, though, to see a live muskox and polar bear. Only twice did I have to stop for animals actually on the road. Once was in northern British Columbia, when a herd of 5 or 6 caribou started heading towards the road, so I stopped. They came out onto the road, and then they just stood there like they had nothing else to do with their day. And they probably didn't. After a while, I began to move the bike very, very slowly. This started them running, and they zigzagged back and forth in front of me on the road about 5 times before finally moving off far enough for me to ride safely past them. I was laughing the whole time watching their silly antics. The second time I saw animals on the road was a few kilometers out of Flin Flon, Manitoba. Up ahead, I could see a big dark shape coming out of the ditch. Sure enough, it was a black bear. I slowed and stopped way back and watched as 2 tiny new cubs came trotting out behind her. Then she stops in the middle of the road and looks back to where she's come from. Sure enough, out popped another little cub. When he caught up to Mama, they all strolled into the ditch on the other side. I waited until they were well off the road, but that Mama bear watched me like a hawk the whole time until I was gone. Maybe she was worried that I would scoop up one of her babies and pop it on the back of my bike. Lots of people ask me what my favorite province or territory was. The truth is, I don't have a favorite, really. Before I left, there was so much I didn't know about my own country. By the end of it, I knew that every area has its own beautiful secrets, and adventure waits in all of them. Mountains, waterfalls, lakes, wildlife, spectacular cities with cool buildings and history. There are so many opportunities to hear amazing stories about the people and places. All you have to do is ask and listen. People love to share their stories and their pride in their communities, and I was amazed to find that everyone I met was so friendly and generous and helpful. I never felt afraid. It made me proud of Canada and its people. I think the most important thing about exploring and adventuring is what you learn about yourself and the world around you. So I'm going to share a few things that I learned and have become part of my life and awareness from my trip. When you have confidence in yourself, it doesn't matter too much what happens around you. All you need is right there in your own body and mind. Now, that doesn't mean you'll never need help. Confidence in yourself is what helps you to know when you need help and helps you to ask for it. If you think about how good it makes you feel to help someone else, you can also understand that it makes them feel good to help you. We are confident when we know that we don't know everything and strive to learn and understand more. We are confident when we're not afraid to change our minds about things when we learn new information. Sometimes we succeed in new things, sometimes we don't. But failure is not a stumbling block. It's a launch pad for the next adventure. I also learned that Canada's history is full of war and hardship, and everyone has their stories of triumph and survival. This is what makes us proud of who we are and of our culture. And it's great to be proud of our culture, but we must also remember that it doesn't make me better than anybody else, what I've triumphed and survived. People of every culture, gender, and religion have fought hard for the rights we now have as Canadians. We don't have to compete for who is best because we're all part of the same country. We should be proud of all of our cultures and learn to listen to other people's stories without being defensive or thinking that we have to tell a better one ourselves. It's okay just to listen and celebrate others too. Visiting museums and learning about the history of our country also made me very aware of how much we consume. Our need to have more and better and bigger has destroyed so much land and environment and culture that it makes me sad sometimes. When we talk about the 3 R's of helping the environment, reduce, recycle, reuse, we really have to focus on reduce. We should learn to fix things instead of throwing them away and buying a new one. Think about whether we really need another pair of shoes to add to the 4 we already have, and change our thinking from want to need. Will we suffer without that new thing? Do we just want it because it's new? Or does the old one work fine? We don't have to look very far to see other people in our own communities that have less and maybe not enough. We could help them instead. I arrived back home on September 16th. I left my bike in Moncton, New Brunswick, to be shipped back by train because I didn't have time to ride. She would arrive a couple of weeks after I did at home. When I left Fury and the bike shop in Moncton, I felt like I had lost my best friend. We had traveled through every province and territory, taken 1 million pictures, and blogged every day for 110 days. Fury and I had spent 3.5 months and 27,184 kilometers together exploring Canada. Adventure and exploration changes your life. It makes you think in new ways, gives you confidence, and bites you so you want to do it again. I don't know for sure yet what my next adventure will be, but I have planned a route to ride all over New Zealand and Ireland and Scotland, and I hope it won't stop there. Now all I need to do is win the lottery. Thank you for being interested in my journey. Remember that you don't have to go too far from home to find adventure. Adventure is what you open your eyes to in the people and places around you. Thank you for sharing mine.